We don't have the same level of resources from state to state, region to region, county to county. So if we're going to change things, it takes a different mindset. And it occurred to me that you've done it on your own. Steve's doing it on his own. We're empowering more and more parents to do it on their own. I surely did it. I have changed the lives of thousands of kids over this lifetime that I've had. And it hasn't come from us living in the past. It has us coming from a new, completely new mindset.
Welcome back to Finding Common Ground with Heather and Steve. Today we have Lynda Allen. She's a career educator and advocate, a real visionary for people who learn differently. But before we hop in, Steve, you got a big day tomorrow, big day for your family. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're adopting our second teenager out of the foster care system. This particular child came here at age 10. He's now 15, 5 years too long in the system, and we finally got him out, and we're going to be the family that adopts him, and he's thrilled. He's been using our last name for quite a while on social media, which is kind of a no-no because it's not really official yet. But you know what? I don't care. I'm glad that he's accustomed to that. He's going to have to get used to it, and we gave him a choice. You can have any name you want, and he can change his first name. They give you that option in the court. But we're pretty thrilled. It's going to be in Syracuse at the National Adoption Day. The actual day is Saturday, but New York State does theirs on Fridays. So that's why we'll be there tomorrow. The only other update, Heather, and I didn't get a chance to tell you, is I've met with Kim Hill Ridley, and I'm going to have they've given me an hour with her, and I'm going to pitch a podcast with her. So hopefully we'll have her on the show down the road.
So everybody knows that's the disability chair for New York State. That is a huge deal. I would love to have a conversation with her. That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure she's gonna do it. She agreed pretty fast. I was in a meeting with her last night, and I talked to her today about it, and she answered right away, and I'm sure did some background checks and all that kind of stuff.
Right?
Who I was, but she got right back to me, and she said yes. So they're already working on setting it up. So
she's a self-advocate herself.
Yes.
A wheelchair user. I've seen her in the MISC meetings. They're the Most Integrated Settings Committee. So it's like how we decide to, how we incorporate Olmsted into New York State, which is bringing people into that most integrated setting that they want to be in. So I love that. That's so cool.
And she's in the executive offices too. She's not with a state agency. She's with the governor's office, and so which is a pretty high level position for anybody with a disability in the field. And so I'm pretty psyched about having her, and I'll really be happy when she comes on the podcast. So anyways, Lynda, welcome. I got a chance I met you literally with other friends that I've met on LinkedIn with some projects that I'm working on with them. That's how I met you, and I was so impressed with some of the things you were doing. Maybe you could give us a little background of some of the stuff, where you got from where you were, way back to today.
Wow. Where do I start with that?
I know, right? That's pretty open. You can make up whatever.
Right. Let me start with today, because it's right behind me, written here. My new mission is empowering parents to create the best education experience for their learning different child. That's my new mission. And where that came from is, so I will tell you more about this, but I've been in special education for a very long time, going into I am in my fifth decade. And so I've worked with the most severely disabled learning people. And in more recent years, as it's become more aware to us that there are people that we're calling neurodiverse learners, and they are our leaders of tomorrow. they are us. They are the people that are not what we would consider special education students. And they, in fact, aren't diagnosed, but they are the ones that are having the most trouble with their education process. So it has just fallen on me. It has seemed that I wanted to, after 5 decades of doing this, I wanted to leave a legacy of some kind. I started realizing that time was running out and what could be the biggest difference. And so I have to tell you that when I first started this, if I may jump right into that, when I first started this, I was originally from New York as well. When I was about 12, there was this secret documentary that was made by Geraldo Rivera.
Yeah.
He went undercover, you may know about this, and filmed about Willowbrook Institution. I was watching that film with my parents, crying hysterically. Just, my mind was blown that there could be that kind of treatment for kids that could not help themselves. Following that, I ended up going to another facility. And I remember everything from that day. Everything. I remember every child I met, everything that happened. And I swore that I was going to close down institutions. It was the last thing I did. And literally, that is what I've been doing all this time.
And you know,
seeing it differently and going for it differently.
Because it's not even shutting the building down, it's shutting the mindset that allows it. And you should look back at some of our first podcasts because we had Tina Fitzroy on, and I believe it's the title something like Institution to Independence, something along those lines. And she is a friend of mine in the Rochester area, and she has cerebral palsy. And her family they were told this is where you drop her off. You can bring her home on the weekends if you want. And her goal at like 4, I think, right, Steve? I'm trying to remember. She was really young, was to get kicked out. Like it was her whole goal. She put her clothes on backwards. She'd sleep under the bed. She wouldn't sleep on the bed. She'd throw her food on the floor. She just did anything she could, hoping that they would tell her she couldn't come back. And you would think that somebody in that position would be really upset with their parents. But just like my daughter, Devin, who's non-speaking, and like people really underestimated her, Tina and Devin have this like grace about them where they forgive people for misjudging them. But at some point it breaks you, right? Like at some point, if people undervalue you or they think that you should be locked away and not seen and not heard, that has to impact people. So as a small child, when you saw that documentary, you felt that. You felt their pain. And what a great way to build a life around something that matters. I feel like we're on a very similar path. Do you have any loved ones, or are they the people that you're directly connected to with disabilities, or are these just people that you've met along the way in your career?
Every one of us has somebody in their family that's been touched. I mean, I had my mom's brother had, I can't remember what happened. He had some kind of a disease that they didn't have any treatment for. And so they gave him some wrong medication and he ended up in a mental institution at the time, Bellevue, actually.
Oh my goodness.
So,
yeah.
Right. So everybody has things like that. But, over the years, because I was always I was always this, we knew I was supposed to be a teacher when I was 5. I knew. But when I saw this other, and I also was kind of different. I was rebellious. Girls weren't supposed to do that back then. Even to get to college, they were like, you have to become a teacher or a nurse. It was like that kind of a time. And I know I don't look that age, but I graduated in 1973. And what's interesting is So I knew that I wanted to do this. I felt so different myself. I felt so misunderstood myself. Putting all that together, of course, I didn't realize it back then, but putting it all together, I realized I was just destined to go this direction. And so I started volunteering in where I lived, and like at about 12, 13. And I realized there were tons of families that kept their children at home. You know, we were all led to believe that you had to put your kid in there. Well, there were all these other people that were defying that. And those people that I got to work with, I met so many children and families. They're gifted, talented, brilliant in so many ways that people could not see. And I just felt like it was a personal reason for me to change the system. So it just so happened that my 5,000 hours, not my academic skills that I was showing at the moment, but I had probably 5,000 plus hours of volunteer work.
Right.
And my parents just got into, my dad went to work for a family member, and we had enough money for me to go to college. I was the first one in my family. And he took me to a counselor, which I've become these days to get kids into college, right? But he helped me, and there was only 6 colleges in the nation that had a special education program.
Wow. Yeah,
And
I mean that's worth pausing over. But in 1975, I think, or around that time.
73. It was 1973.
Well, I'm just thinking about the law passed that public schools
law
had.
in 1975.
Right.
So they were working on the law at that point, which was because of parents, by the way.
Mhm.
Parents made enough noise that President Gerald Ford, November 25th, 1975, passed into law the Education for All Handicapped Children Act.
Yes. And then the schools had to say that you could come. Before that point, guys, they didn't. You could send your child away or you could keep them home. Those were your choices. They were not going to let you
schooling
send
was
them.
available.
Yeah. Mhm.
No resources to help educate them. There was none of that. However, were parents resilient? 15 years later, they were instrumental in also creating a very necessary change to that name. Because the Education for All Handicapped Children, what does that say, right? And it got changed 15 years later to the Individuals with Disabilities. It's not who they are. It's just a symptom they have, right? The Disabilities Act. But what's really interesting is still the mindset did not change. It took a really long time. Did you know that it took a Supreme Court case in 2017? So that was now more than 40 years later after the law was passed at first, that they banned the use of the term mental retardation. 2017.
It was Obama. Yeah. I remember celebrating that. I do. In
Yes, so-
2019, I had a court case because all the way that point, it was a federal court case, landmark case, that my daughter wasn't worthy of accommodation because she was too disabled. And that was in 2019. It took us 8 years. So you just think when you think back to the 70s and 80s, I think our audience can understand it was a different time. But some of these landmark cases were a few years ago. Families are still having to prove their child's worth, that they're worthy of accommodation, that they might be learning differently, but they still shouldn't be locked away. There's still that mindset. Not just in New York. I mean, you live in Florida now. Do you see it? I mean, is this something that's just everywhere?
It's everywhere. And it depends on, we don't have the same level of resources from state to state, region to region, county to county. So, yeah, it's definitely, and I know we got into this, I brought this up, but that's been my thing. Is that if we're going to change things, it takes a different mindset. And it occurred to me that I know you've done it on your own. Steve's doing it on his own. We're empowering more and more parents to do it on their own. I surely did it. I have changed the lives of thousands of kids over this lifetime that I've had. And it hasn't come from us living in the past. It has us coming from a new, completely new mindset. Right? And so part of the reason that all these things have happened is because we're living in a world where people who are different are not accepted. And it occurred to me that if I can empower enough parents, because parents are going to take care about their kids, and they can make that change more than anyone, as we will know. Mm-hmm. If I can empower enough parents, how would we perceive, therefore, accept and educate learning different people around the world? What could change then?
I love that.
And then I thought, every adult, even every child, loves a child who has something going on, that they're hurting in some way, that they're learning differently and living life differently. So if every one of those people can learn to accept that child, what would happen in the world then? Who else might we accept? People from different cultures, people who live different lifestyles. It just seemed like this was the kind of legacy I wanted to leave.
I had mentioned that I used to be a school psychologist in my previous life, and how I didn't like IQ scores. I realized we were putting people in boxes and categories, and we were talking about symptoms and characteristics and diagnostic criteria. And it struck me. I was in this mom's house, and she just kept staring at this one picture on the wall where the little boy was maybe 8 months old, maybe a little bit older, but not, he was really little in the picture. And she would just look at it. And I finally said, "What is it about that picture?" And she said, "That's before I knew he had autism. That's when I thought when he did the happy hands, he was happy. But now I know he's stimming." And I said, "No, those are his happy hands. When he does that with his fingers, we know he's excited. You were always right. And then somebody came in and thought they were doing you a favor, giving you a clinical name for that, and telling you your little boy was autistic and he stims, and now you have these negative words and negative connotations. He's still your little boy. He's still that little boy in that picture. Now you just have different words clouding your head, making you think of him differently. And that's where we have to change it. So I'm so glad you're saying what you're saying, because we're in a system. I was talking with Steve the other day where families have to list off everything their child cannot do. And we have to do it on a regular basis to keep them with their IEP and make sure they have a life plan and make sure OPW in New York State is going to take care of them. And if our kids hear us continually list the things they cannot do, we cannot be surprised that when they graduate, they only know the things they can't do.
So true. I mean, we are all on the same page with this, aren't we? And it's not going to happen. There's so many of us that do believe this, but we're expecting, I don't know, a miracle. But it's not going to happen just like that.
No.
We've known forever. There's not one person that would disagree that everybody has a different brain and everybody learns differently. There's not anyone that would say that that's not absolutely correct. But we are living in a world where the mentality is to be part of a group thing. Not even as much as we try. Look at what we've done to our people who we call neurodiverse. The geniuses of our leaders, our scientists, our inventors, our actors, or artists, right? Those people are neurodiverse. Their brains work in completely different ways. I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but for people that are these people, what I keep on thinking is, oh my goodness, it shines, neurodiversity shines for them in adulthood because they figured out the way to manage it. But boy, are our kids struggling like crazy on their way to high school graduation. Right? So that's why it feels like it's just time to really change. Literally, we use that word paradigm, remember, for a whole couple of decades. And then that word went out. We just need to really accept people in such a different way. And when we do that, when we get to see the magnificence in every single person, which is, of course, what we did. That's what you do, Steve, in every child that you work,
Right.
with every person that you talk to, when we're able to say, and that's the biggest thing for me, when I say to them, there is nothing broken, nothing wrong. This is who your child is. Well, you know. So it's a new world for us, I think, to go in that direction. Us to really be acknowledging the differences.
Lynda, sometimes Heather and I think we're all alone out here, kind of blazing trails. It's good to know that you're out there because you know what? A few years ago, if somebody had told me, I was one of the guys looking for a miracle, looking for the state to do everything. That was never going to happen. And I changed the way I did advocacy. Heather changed the way she's done advocacy. And we just don't key on that stuff anymore. It's a waste of time. And I get to live this because I have so many different kids that have come through our home and they're all different. But you talk about genius. Some of these kids here in my house, they're geniuses. They have niches, and we actually just had a transition specialist on recently. And she said the same thing, that we find the strength, and it's what we do, and it's what's worked for me. I find their strength and I key on it. And even my own son, I taught him how to, in school, to do math. He had a terrible time with it off of baseball cards. He learned of stuff because he likes sports. Now you piqued his interest, and now he's learning math, that kind of stuff. And so I'm so glad that you realize that we have to be the change agents. We have to be the cavalry. We have to be the ones that are stepping up and empowering people and inspiring people to do better. So I'm glad that you're keying on that part of it. And I think it's the answer. We're the answer. We know the issues. We know the problems, and we certainly know our children.
Absolutely. Lynda, how do you share your ideas? I mean, I know you have a book that came out. I want you to be able to talk about that, but you also just did a TEDx talk, and that is completely on my bucket list. So if we can hit on those two things, I would love to know how you get your message out, how you reach people.
Yeah, so this is for those people who think that you can't change, what you've always been doing, even if you want to. Because, of course, I learned how to be in the world, even though I was very different in the world. Like, I didn't keep a job from time, but I did literally 50 years of this kind of work. Anything that was helping kids become better, because I wanted to become better. And that's how I started it. So around when the pandemic happened, I started thinking, and I guess I have to go back because for the last 20 years, I've had a tutoring center called Make Your Mark in Life Learning Center. And I was doing this because I would take kids, whether they were really having major difficulties to the brightest and quirkiest among them. And I would bring them in. And of course, my intention was always to empower the parents, but not all the parents were ready to be empowered. It was like, you need to show me first. And when they saw that I was able to bring out in their children just because I accepted them for who they were, because I got really curious, because I didn't have a same mindset that said, but I have to. I said, no, we don't have to do anything. And I did whatever it took taking them for IEP meetings, going in, talking to the teachers, doing family therapy, taking kids to treatment programs, whatever it took to be able to have them see it differently. And many parents, all over town, I'm known, right? So every day, it's been the first time I've stayed in one place for that long of a period of time, too. So every day I see a kid or a grandparent of a kid that I worked with, right? I'm surrounded. I don't have my own children, so I have all these adopted children. So I realized that I could do this until I couldn't work anymore, that still is not changing the situation. And I remembered, it just like came to me that the way I was even taught to be an empowerment, to empower parents, was they used to tell us to teach them what you know and teach them how to do that at home. Especially, I was one of the first early intervention specialists in the nation.
Wow. That's where I started in early intervention. That's where my heart is. Yeah.
And it was so from birth to 3 years. And they would say to us, especially to these parents, you have to learn how to do all these things. And I remember thinking, like, first of all, who am I? I was a big 20 something. Who am I to tell them what to do? They're the parents. But the other part of it never made sense to me. So I started to think, like, that's not what empowerment is. I found this definition. It was from I don't know if I can remember it now. So from the European medical care, I can give people, it's written in my book and in my stuff, but it said, that being empowered is becoming a decision-making partner in the identification and delivery of every service your child needed. And it just answered so much for me. When I started thinking, so what could empowerment look like then? And just like I had been able to do all these things, like all I had to do was hang a shingle up, because if anybody had a problem with a kid, they knew, call Lynda. But I didn't have to advertise, right?
We get there.
Right? That's what happens, right? But trying to get this out into the world, to be able to talk to parents everywhere, I had no idea. And this was during the pandemic, and everybody was starting to do this self-education thing. So I've spent years and a whole lot of money relearning how to do things online. And now, of course, we are 5 years past that time. And so what it's turned out to be is, first I did an online course. My course, it could take you 5 hours. It could take you less than that if you want to go through it faster. But I developed these 4 steps. The first step being, identify the dream role you want for your child. Not what you think you should do, not what you have to do, not what you can afford to do. What's your dream role for your child?
If anything was possible, right? If anything's possible, what do you want it to be?
Anything was possible, what would you do? And I could talk more about it, but it's just a 4-step process, so easy, so different than anything other parents have learned. It was something I was doing all the time, but I put it into this format. So your dream role for your child. The second thing, let me teach you enough to know about learning so that you can't be bowled over by anybody. Let me teach you what your child absolutely needs in order for them to learn in their different ways. So I have that as part 2. Part 3 is realizing you are not alone. There are so many, especially in this day and age, there are so many available resources, so many of them that you can get for free. If you have this empowered mindset that you know your child best, that you are the expert, and that you could pull in these other resources, and you know enough you probably know more than most of the teachers or therapists that you would come in contact with, right? That you can design the program that your child needs. But again, you're not alone. We know that 1 in 5, 20 to 25% of every year's school population learns differently enough that they require specialized education services. That's every year. That's not even talking about the kids that have aged out of high school. And that's including private and public schools. And that's not even including the 3 to 5-year-olds. That's 15 million children every year.
Wow.
In the United States, 250 million around the world. And that does not include the neurodiverse population that we're talking about, which for people that might not know this, the most common neurodiversity, it's not autism. Everybody's thinking that these days, right? The most common one is ADD or ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's me.
That's me too.
I think that's what we can be creative, right? Like we got all the tabs open on the computer.
Right? Isn't it true?
Yeah.
Dyslexia is considered dysgraphia. All the dys's, those are considered neurodiverse because it's just the brain's different ways of learning, right? So this last part, this last step is putting together your particular team for your child to help grow your child. And it could be a one Mrs. Lynda. That's what some of my families, that's all they needed, right? But others, you need more of a village to raise your child.
I love that.
So,
and you think you're stuck with who the school gives you. Like families have this, I hate the OT, and I wish that speech therapist was different. That's who they see at school. And you might have some control, you might have some say, but don't let it stop you there. Like when you were talking about you have to be empowered, don't be bullied, don't be pushed around. If you know there's a need that's not being met, find another way. Build your village. I like that.
But of course we know, and we have to understand that parents, not all of us can get really strong and fight back like that. It depends on what we've gone through. And then it also depends on what kind of situation we're living with at home and how really severely involved our kids might be.
How tired we are.
Right? And how tired we are and how hurting we are, which is why that first thing. Now, I don't start with that. I mean, even so I've taken the online course, I've turned it into a book. It's being published before the end of the year. And then I've done this TEDx talk just so I can get my name out there. And just everywhere I'm going, it's just all about empowering parents. And my goal is, so that idea of a village, my goal is to create parent villages everywhere. So kind of like the 12-step programs, or we've had a lot of parent programs that have come together that are parents of special needs. But this one is different. This one is about empowered parents who are going to be coming together and be learning the steps of how to, in an empowering way, not only change their child, but change each other and then the world.
I need you to look something up because I'm in a group. This is our mindset. I feel like you're talking right to us right now. Look up family governed networks. They don't have them in New York State, but in Canada, they're very popular. And in Michigan, you will learn a lot from that concept and that framework, but it also will just align with what you're saying. It will give you a different group of people who are saying, families learn best from each other. And if I have this network of people, how wonderful. And maybe that's something that our audience can do at that grassroots level, because I know people are listening and we're coming up on the end of the show right now. And I just want to leave them with something. We're going to put the name of your book in the podcast description. We'll make sure we link your TED Talk. Parents listening want to know, what can they do in their backyard? What step can they take to make a difference? Do you have
Well,
any
and
ideas?
yeah.
Mhm.
So we're limited by how we feel about ourselves. The number one thing is that becoming really aware of the dream you have for a child and what you see your role as. Because all along the way, you're going to get stopped. But isn't that the same in life? When a business doesn't work out, when a relationship doesn't work out, everything falls apart, right? Well, so something happens, there's a million things that could happen. But when you have empowerment, when you feel right and good about yourself, you can move mountains. And when you have the fuel behind you that you're going to change it for your child, you're going to do what no one else is doing. You'll learn these steps. And then when you're supported by other parents who think the same way as you do, like you just said, Steve, right? Like you always think that we're alone. When there are parent villages everywhere, that you can go to a meeting, whether it's online or in person, imagine what that would look like. Imagine how the schools would fall in place. Imagine how the services would approach. Imagine how many homeschooling programs. I mean, to me, it seems mind-boggling. It's just to get it out there now and to get it started. And to give you an idea of how easily I think it can get started, about 6 months ago, I met somebody on LinkedIn from Kenya. And they had a vision because they don't have services like we have. They do have special education programs, but they don't even start it. They don't even accept that your child might have problems until they're 7. It's really weird things, right? But
Yeah. You can all just work out, just
Right.
let it wait it out a little bit.
Today we have an organization, we call it Neuro Bloom Kenya. They're coming in from this high level look at their kids, that we're all neurodiverse. We all have different brains and we all learn differently. So that's how we have to treat it. And so we have people with little bits of problem to really what felt like insurmountable. And we're bringing them together, and they're the first parent village.
Oh my gosh, if you can do it there, culturally speaking, in Kenya, if your child will not be able to take care of you when you're older, it's okay to throw them in the river. I mean, like it is literally acceptable. This isn't like an old thing. This is a pervasive mindset in that culture. So that is amazing that there is somebody there that is so radically different. But what does that show everybody listening? You might feel like your idea is just like so out there or so different, but we have the connections now. We have online, we have social media. You can find people who want to do the same things you want to do. And even if they can't go to your CSE meeting with you, you can still find them and you can still bond with them and change things. Oh, I adore that story. I really do, especially knowing the part of the world. Piece by piece, person by person. It's a ripple effect.
It is for here too. You know how we talked about like in different states? Like Mississippi is considered the state with the least amount of resources when it comes to education. Right? That they're the poorest of all. It's written in all the. But if they had a really powerful, empowered parent effort, they could change the world.
That's how laws get passed. It'll be like one mom that keeps going into the office and saying, we need to do this. So whenever anybody feels like super small, exactly. I know, but the little ant can carry all that weight, right? Like you could, if you think you could do it, you can. Absolutely.
So like any answer to that question that you said too, what's the number one step? A parent has to make a decision. I want to change my mind. I want to become an empowered parent. So I'm thinking of doing like these badges or something. I don't know. But my book is called I Am an Empowered Parent. And so I think that's what I want, that everybody is going to be wearing these badges, becoming part of the club and go everywhere with that, right? And eventually...
It spells IEP. I'm impaired. Parent. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I always do that. That's my quirkiness. I think of acronyms for everything.
That's so funny.
That's great.
That's so funny.
But it's also very memorable. And you do want to speak something into existence. You have to believe it. And you have to grieve because maybe your life did not go the way you thought it was going to. Steve's heard me say this. When I had my daughter, my first one, 9 weeks early, the nurse said to me, you can cry every day in the shower as hard as you want. But when you get out of the shower, you wipe the water off your face, off your body, and you be the parent that little girl needs. And it has always stuck with me. We are allowed to grieve. We're allowed to say, damn it, this is not what I was planning. This feels unfair. But if you get stuck there, your poor child and poor you, that's a horrible place to live and be at. So being empowered, I mean, that's in our tagline, empowerment advocacy. We were supposed to have this conversation. I'm so glad Steve found you. Steve, what sticks out to you?
I want to say one thing because I think what you just said, like you couldn't get it from that description, but I spend in the book and in the online course, and my effort is a lot of energy on really allowing parents to move into that place of empowerment. Really, because I think that's the most important thing. And I think that that's what I do that's so different, that not everybody has a counselor to go to, or not everybody allows them to think that they can have that. My goal is to help them see that everything in life, everything happens for a reason.
Why the obstacle there to teach you, right? Yeah, exactly.
Everything happens for a reason. And you have been given this child, or these children, or this life, or this vision. We have been given that. That's the blessings that we've been given.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can move to that place, we can put buses in every community. We can build mountains. We can change the world.
But it doesn't discount the hard parts. There's so much infighting right now in the disability community. Seeing that and having that mindset does not say that the child isn't profoundly impacted, that it's not very difficult. But how you approach a problem and how you see it, that's the difference. And that's the shift that only you can make. So if you're listening to this and you want to feel that shift or learn more about it, please look for Lynda's book. Where will the TED Talk be? Like how will people be able to find that?
For every TED Talk, do you know that there's 100 to 125 TEDx talks happening around the world every single day?
No, I did not know.
Isn't that amazing? And there are unbelievable amounts that are going into this field. I'm probably one of the few that talks about empowering parents, but there's a lot about our kids and a lot about adults coming forward because they're going to be the ones that are going to help us. Adults with ADHD, adults with Asperger's, adults with autism, right? Lots of people. Dyslexia movement, oh my God, that is like huge because there's lots of actors and artists that have that phenomenon, right?
Let the revolution begin.
The revolution is beginning. So on TEDx alone, it's all free. And within 30 to 60 days, depending upon where you do your TEDx talk, it goes on there and it's for free.
That's wonderful.
And so I will always be a TEDx speaker, even if I never do another TEDx or whatever. But under my name, now I have that credential.
There you go. Love it.
so that we can make the changes we need to make. And I'll help you make it too with a TEDx talk.
Thank you. I would love to.
Me
I
too.
really
Oh my
would.
God, you'd be so incredible.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Put me in, coach.
We'll teach you. Yeah, so it'll be, and it'll be made available. And of course, I'll be sending out emails and texts and posts and all that to let people know when my book's ready, but my online course is now ready. So
They can find you on LinkedIn right now. They can connect with you on LinkedIn. Very good.
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. They can connect. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all of the.
There you go. Well, good.
Yeah, I'm out there. I am trying to get as known as I used to be when I was known as Mrs. Lynda.
There you go. There you go. Steve, what do you want to close out the show with? This was such a powerful block of time.
Yeah, my wife wants to move south. I might just move to Mississippi to try and help out down there.
Right?
I don't think she'll be happy with that. I think she was talking more like Florida.
I don't know. She's allowed 178 kids in my house.
If you came by me, I would help you do that.
Aw.
So, yeah, it was really nice having you on, Lynda. A lot of things that you said resonate, and the things I'm trying to do already. And so important, I think, that we try and get other parents to do this, follow these steps that you have and follow the steps that we're doing to try and empower. They have a lot of power, more than they think, parents out there. So I'm glad that you came on, like I said, and hopefully some people who listen will go to your site and our site, and we actually have a website now, fcgadvocacy.org, and we'll try and tie some of your stuff into the bottom of our links when we put this out.
Yeah, when your
Dude,
TEDx is out, let's post it. Yeah, I love that.
We'll be sharing lots. You know, Steve and I only just met, and Heather, I can't wait to know you better.
This is so fun. So guys, when we post this, it's going to be on Facebook for sure. We'll put it on LinkedIn as well. Please interact with our posts. That's how people find us. We really appreciate it. Anytime you share, you comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, those things actually make a big difference on how we get this information out there and get this in front of more people. So thank you. And I guess that's it. That's a wrap, guys. Have a great day. Until next time.
Continue the conversation by joining our Facebook group. If you're a fan of the show, please join our supporters club. Subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your favorite listening app, but most of all, share it with your friends. Just one more click or comment can make a huge difference and help us to continue finding common ground.